Show you first this clip from Jim Jordan because it's from the case that happened earlier today. Watch this.
I just came from the argument. I will tell you that there was one line that I still can't believe Judge Jackson said this, but she actually said to the Solicitor General from Louisiana, she said, "You've got the First Amendment hamstringing the government." Now think about that.
What?
That's the whole thinking purpose. Like it's supposed to, the government's not supposed. I mean, the fact that you have a person on the United States Supreme Court make that statement in the arguments on a case about censorship and the First Amendment, it's just like, I'm like, at one point I don't even know what to say. Like,
yes.
How could she make that statement?
That's like
it's
saying
crazy.
The problem with the Second Amendment is it's going to make the government afraid of coming to your house to take your guns away.
It's crazy to me that we've got Supreme Court justices that can't understand basic things. I guess we shouldn't be surprised if you can't define what a man and a woman is, then maybe you can't define basic things in the Constitution. So let's go back to both of you on this before we go to the next story. Lance, I want to ask you with that, how do you process this? How do you tell people what to do about this issue?
Simplify the complex. It's always our job, John. We have to simplify the complex. Then we have to, like you always say, put the cookies on the lowest shelf, make it accessible. But then we have to highlight what's extraneous from what's important.
Yeah.
Is Kate Middleton, is she being photoshopped? Not an important story right now. What's important is Supreme Court, someone sitting on the Supreme Court saying, wait a second, your individual protection is getting in the way of government controlling you. Wait a minute. Your individual right to speech is getting in the way of the government suppressing your speech. I mean, you can't have it both ways. The fact that you've got someone on the Supreme Court making that argument tells you something. Socialism, remember this, go back to Germany with Hitler. Socialism, National Socialism, fascist National Socialism is when the government controls the corporations and they work together to control the people. This has got to be broken up now.
So, Floyd, a great point, Lance. Floyd, you've been following this for a minute. You understand all of this. What is the dream outcome here? What do you predict might happen with the Supreme Court, and what's the best thing that can happen for the Constitution and for free speech?
Yeah. Well, the dream outcome is that the U.S. Supreme Court would do its job and would enforce the United States Constitution. The Constitution is clear. The government should not be suppressing or controlling or gagging any private individual. That is against the U.S. Constitution. And so they should not be hiding behind tech companies to do it. They shouldn't be hiding behind big government agencies to do it. Fundamentally, what we need is to have an order go down, and the federal government and the local governments need to be told clearly, in no uncertain terms, the Constitution of the United States does not allow you to gag your citizens. Citizens have a right to speak out and say what they believe in the public square.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that's why we're seeing the Elon Musk of the world. I like how even Lance tied together Twitter. Some of these people are willing to go to great lengths of their own finances to give us free speech. You see Tucker doing this. I mean, he gets fired over trying to be a journalist, and now he's being a free speech journalist. It's like he's set free. And let me shift our focus, because this ties back to what you just said, Floyd. President Trump gave a speech literally earlier this week, and we're going to show you a little clip of this, and then we're going to talk about what the media does with the clip. They take one word, they take it out of context, and so I want you to watch this clip first, and then we'll get both of you to comment on it.
Mexico has taken, over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, And you think you're going to get that? You're going to not hire Americans and you're going to sell the cars to us? No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line. And you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories. A friend of mine.
So you see what he's saying here, Lance. He's talking about the automobile industry. He's talking about China. He's talking about Mexico. He's talking about all these things. Look at this cartoon. I want to just frame this first and then get you to comment, Lance. I don't know if we have that we can pull up here, where President Trump, what he said is, if I'm not reelected, there's going to be a bloodbath in the automotive industry. And what actually gets said by the media and what they're going to spin it, we're going to unpack this. If I'm not reelected, there's going to be a bloodbath. This, again, is like the January 6th narrative, Lance. Talk to us about what's happening here, and more importantly, how should people get their news besides signing up at FlashPoint? But how should they also perceive these things when they're happening to us, Lance?
Yeah, remember the comedian Kathy Gibbons there was holding a head of Trump there, disembodied, and it was going to be like, and it was like, that was the liberal response to Trump. Then there was the New Yorker article where Trump's at the bottom of an escalator and his red tie is poured out next to his head like he got shot and assassinated. Then he got nutjob Keith Olbermann over there calling for assassination. You see, the left is loaded with demons. And those demons project on everyone else what they secretly are all about. So they're a violent group. They're the Antifa crowd. They're the BLM crowd. They're the riots in your cities crowd. They're the tear down the statues, burn down the police precinct people. And then they're the accuse you, that you might even think about doing the same thing. So I look at all that stuff and I just say, what you're doing now is and what that cartoon is doing is the answer. Did you notice that Jim Jordan was on Steve Crowder? This is the buried lead in that segment. What's happening now is the Joe Rogans and the Steve Crowders and the FlashPoints. Legacy media has so little credibility that they have a big mouthpiece, but nobody's listening to them.
That's right.
So a majority of Americans are going, and then they're going over to us, and they're going, what do you say? And when they hear Crowder or they hear Steve Bannon on War Room, the left is always freaked out at the ability of conservatives to get a message out. That's why they tried to shut down talk radio when Rush Limbaugh started it, because they can't handle free communication that they don't control at the corporate level. So I say they're going to increase this, but I think it's different now. I think in the Twitter sphere, the Tucker sphere, the Rogan sphere, the Russell Brand, I think we've all got a big voice now. And every time they do that, if we mock it, it loses its power.
So let's do this. Let's look at a sample from ABC, kind of how they just out of the box spin this automobile industry comment.
Bruce in for Lindsay Davis. We begin tonight with the race for the White House and former President Trump's campaign now on the defensive after his fiery rhetoric at a rally in Dayton, Ohio on Saturday night. Trump warning while discussing the economy that there would be a, quote, bloodbath if he is not reelected in November. This after the former president kicked off the event by paying tribute to those who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. President Biden's campaign swiftly denouncing those comments as threats of political violence.
And threats of political violence. Let me show you the comment from Biden and Harris. I'll just read this to you. Tonight, Donald Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he wasn't elected, and that if he lost, there would be no more elections. After opening in the general election by meeting with authoritarian leaders, rallying alongside conspiracy theorists, he continues to praise dictators and promise pardon to political violence, talking about people who walked through the Capitol January 6th, who were listening to a political speech, launch racist attacks against black and brown Americans. They always got to make it about racism. And why last night Trump's own Vice President Mike Pence, whose supporters called on him to hang him, said he's not going to come out and support Trump. This is who Donald Trump is, and they go on and on and on. Floyd, let me ask you out of this. This is just the first we're going to see. We don't have time to cover all of it. Do you agree with Lance that everybody's going to be getting their media from somewhere else? Or do you think these people still have clout, or the only people listening to them are the radical left?
Well, they still have clout because of the money. I mean, the truth is that all of the major corporations, from the Bud Lights to the Procter and Gamble's to the Ford Motor Companies, they're all advertising on these legacy networks and pouring millions and millions of dollars into their coffers in order to prop up these institutions that have virtually no audience. At the same time, alternative institutions like FlashPoint or even the Western Journal, FlashPoint has to survive on donations. And the Western Journal, we've been under tremendous suppression and attacks on the people that actually advertise on our platform. So this is, in fact, a war, but we are winning it because of our courage and our willingness to stand. And that's why I like FlashPoint so much, and why it's so important, because it gets these messages around the mainstream roadblocks to the people that have the courage of Jesus Christ to stand up and stand up tall for what they believe.
That's right. So we've heard ABC. Let's be balanced, fair and balanced here. Let's see what the Clinton News Network had to say about this. Watch this.
He's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here. How respectful I am of the American people and their goodness. But how much more do they have to see from him to understand that this isn't what our country is about? Praising Hitler, praising the Russians. Honest.
So Lance, talk to me. I know you have a high respect for the goodness of everybody in America and for Nancy Pelosi. Tell me, in your own words, what do you think the media is doing here at the CNN headquarters?
Oh, I remember Nancy Pelosi with her, like, clap, clap, clap when the president gave his speech. Wonder what would have happened if Speaker Johnson had gone clap, 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 and then after Biden's speech went like this and tore it up in front of the American people. These hypocrites have no standing whatsoever to talk about anything that has to do with protocol, decency, decorum, or balance in America. They're dangerous. I'm telling you, they're dangerous. And the American people are going to have to make a choice. And I have a suspicion that what you're really looking at here is going to be one of the greatest heightened periods of rhetorical warfare we've ever seen. And when I say that, I don't think it's people anymore. I think you're dealing with demons talking through people. You look at those old speeches at Nuremberg, or you look at those Hitler rallies, and what you see is that Satan, by the spirit of Antichrist, is it's like a, what does it say? It's a mouth that speaks great and swelling words. So you're going to see, just remember this, Christian, that you're going to listen to demons talking through people in order to create an incendiary landscape where people are told he's talking about a bloodbath. He's trying to fight black people and Latinos. They are the agents of chaos trying to light the matches on the American people. And it's going to be a real challenge to be able to put the fire hose on the lies and the rhetoric and illuminate those that are open to illumination. Because the left, the danger is, the people that drink in this stuff, they're the ones that are capable of craziness.
And here's what I like about that. If you are in doubt what's going on, here's the way I go back to, you said this earlier in the show, Lance, keep it simple, okay? Jesus said, don't be deceived from the simplicity that's in Jesus Christ. God did what? He took chaos and he brought order. Anytime someone takes order and they bring chaos, that's the opposite. And you said a second thing I think that I want our listeners to pay attention to. You said the hypocrisy of the left is insane. So they took this one clip and they used the word bloodbath. Oh, if you use bloodbath, that means you're calling for violence. Let me show you just a few clips the army of producers here at FlashPoint have gathered on the same exact word that the left used. Watch this.
But as Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC, Headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough.
Trump has left a lot of corpses in his wake. I mean, we can count the bodies.
As part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Columnist Charles Blow has a new piece for the New York Times entitled A Biden Bloodbath.
2018 midterms, you can bet that they 100% are fearing a slaughter. In fact, the word bloodbath and massacre come up frequently.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
There's going to be a bloodbath one way or the other.
Bloodbath for Bernie Sanders.
It's been a bloodbath there, shaping up to be a bloodbath.
Head off a bloodbath in next year's crucial midterm.
Off-year elections are often a bloodbath.
This week's bloodbath for Democrats.
A bloodbath at the ballot box.
There could be a Republican bloodbath.
They'll talk about a bloodbath.
It's a bloodbath. I have to talk about you. And
It's going to be a bloodbath all day long.
Is in for a bloodbath.
Hasn't been a bloodbath on the way down.
Donald Trump bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath.
Predicted to be a bloodbath.
may not be the bloodbath.
It would be a bloodbath.
More of a bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
Possible Biden bloodbath this November.
A bloodbath on Wall Street.
There's going to be a bloodbath
In Alabama into a bloodbath.
Obviously, there was a bloodbath.
It was a bloodbath. We're down 800 points.
This bloodbath at Department of Homeland Security.
And it's a bloodbath today.
There was going to be this bloodbath.
Election bloodbath.
It could be a bloodbath for them.
Bloodbath, possibly.
Bloodbath that went through with the Attorney General.
Bloodbath 99 days out.
The bloodbath is going to look like
Presided over a bloodbath in the diplomatic corps.
Absolute, in my opinion, bloodbath. The Democrats are
Calling it ticket sales turned into a bloodbath.
ticket sales for singer Taylor Swift's latest tour.
It's safe to say the fans had a bloodbath for the company after the fiasco.
You see what I mean? They have no problem with the word when it's theirs, but if it's yours, it means we've got to make a statement that you're calling for violence and you're trying to do this. Floyd, let me go to you first, and then Lance, right before the break. What do you think about this? What do you make of this, and how can people process? Because we gathered all those clips, right? But people, those are subtle.
Yeah.
Those you don't see those all the time. How can people discern through what's being happened when there's propaganda?
Well, Lance is absolutely correct. This is a spiritual battle, and it's not surprising that these people are all saying the same thing because the father of lies is whispering in all of their ears. And one of the things I say when I go around the country and give speeches is I say, if you want to discern the news, get into Scripture, get into the Bible. The Bible, the Word of God, gives you the discernment to understand what's really going on in the news. And it's amazing. The more you read Scripture, the more you can see through the lies, the more the lies just evaporate. So I encourage people, be in the Bible, study the Bible every single day, and God will give you the discernment to see through the father of lies.
And actually, discernment is in the New Testament. It says we exercise our discernment. We have to use it. So part of what we're doing here at FlashPoint is exposing the lie so that you can practice discerning through this and seeing what they're doing. Lance, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, the opening segment, you had that fellow that was discussing his case before the Supreme Court. He used an interesting word. It's misused in English, but it's a biblical word called Leviathan. He said, what we're up against is a Leviathan of misinformation and media and tech manipulation. That word Leviathan refers to a multi-headed spiritual principality in the book of Job and in Isaiah that has the ability to twist the meaning of words in order to disconnect people. What you're watching now is the spirit of Leviathan through media and the Democratic Party in an effort to twist the meaning of words in order to divide America into categories that will go to war with each other. And we rebuke that because there is a bloodbath, but it's a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins. I love the old blood songs that Pentecostals sing. We should be singing them now.
You know what is incredible to me, Lance, what you said there? Leviathan and Behemoth are the two beasts that are spoken of in the book of Job. And the Behemoth is death, but the Leviathan is the spiritual warfare. It used to be the newspaper. Then it was mainstream media. Now I think it's also social media. And Jesus tells this story because he wants us to pray and to persist and never give up. Now think through this for a second. Why would Jesus teach us to pray and to persist and tell us a story about an unjust judge. You think he didn't know that maybe someday we were going to be facing unjust judges that didn't give us the justice that God demands? And what does he say to her? And what does he say about the judge? He says about the judge, he doesn't even fear God, and he doesn't respect people. He doesn't respect people. And we can all feel like this widow must have felt. Now, we don't know that she was arguing about election integrity, now do we? Maybe we're not told what she's arguing about. But what we are told is she did two things. And a lot of the church says, oh, I'm going to pray about this. I'm going to pray about this. Or a lot of the church turns into activists and I'm going to go vote and get people to vote. What Jesus says is she did both. She prayed and she spoke. She used her voice, even to someone she didn't think, and everyone agreed, that guy's not going to give you justice. He doesn't fear God. He doesn't care about people. We have to take that same posture. We have to take that same posture of using our voice and praying and never giving up. And you know what he eventually did? She eventually won. So Lance, I want to go back to you and I want to say this to you. This is the answer to the frustration that you're expressing, that I feel, that all of us, I think, feel. What, is there no evidence here? What is the problem that's going on here? And yet he finally said, this lady's going to wear me out. I'm going to give her what she wants. And he gave her what she wants. All we want's a fair hearing. All we want's an audit of these machines. All we want is to know the truth. Are our elections fair and secure? So Lance, I'm going to take it to you. How can people take this, process this, and know what to do about it?
Well, first of all, be encouraged. I mean, listen, the perseverance of the saints is what ultimately prevails. That's the point of that parable. Our perseverance carries perseverance. I mean, she won't stop. She's like a mama bear robbed of her cubs. She got ripped off twice, actually. They tried to steal her as a candidate, and then they robbed her of the results. Trump's in the same boat. But notice that by perseverance, the snail got into the ark. And we may not be moving fast, but we're getting there. And now the Supreme Court is listening to Lindell last week, Carrie Lake this week, the big tech suppression. Even though we've got some nutty justices up there, there's a prevailing power in the media and in the press to put a lot of pressure on them to justify their decision. And that's what makes people honest when they got a lot of eyeballs in the room. Look at that judge down in Atlanta with Fani Willis. I predicted he was going to waffle. He looked like a Waffle House to me. And when she was up manifesting in that courtroom and he's like staring at her, I said, why doesn't he just get that gavel and say, shut up? Nope, he was embarrassed. He was intimidated because he's up for election. See, these judges are politicians. You forget that, folks. So you know what you got to do? Every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on what your municipality is, you got to vote righteous judges in. And if you don't show up, don't be surprised that the devil takes advantage of your apathy. That's what I'd say.
I love that. And here's the thing. It's not either or. We can walk and chew gum, right? We can fight for election integrity, and we can also vote and get other people to vote. I tell you, Gene keeps this red phone, and I'm listening to Lance here the whole time, and I'm thinking, what would I rather? Would I rather the President of the United States call us tonight so I could pick up the phone? Yes, sir. You know what I would rather than that, Lance and Floyd? I would rather millions, tens of millions of people be like that persistent widow and say, I am not going to stop picking up the phone, calling my county commissioner and going, hey, what about my software? Did what happened in Maricopa in this case happen in mine? That's the power of the people. That's the power. Even if they don't have morals, they know how to count. And I want tens of millions of people to raise up there. Floyd, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, and it is happening. I am actually really encouraged. I've been involved in elections for 40 years, and I believe we are going to see a wave election in November like we've never seen before. I predicted in my book Counterpunch, and the truth about it is it's because of the love that we're extending to other people. You know, we're not the ones that are violent. Instead, we're going into other communities. Carrie Lake is focused on the Latino community here in Arizona. And for the first time, we are making unbelievable strides with that group. Black Americans are coming to the Trump banner in record numbers. And so the Democratic coalition that has always relied on what are known as low information voters, they're being awakened by the prices at the grocery store, the prices at the pump, the pain in their families, the chaos in their schools are being woken up. And that's why I'm actually really encouraged. And we've got to love our neighbors, communicate with our neighbors, talk to everybody, stay engaged, stay involved. And if we do that, then in fact, we are going to see a huge victory come November.
I love that. I love the title of that, Counterpunch. That's kind of what Trump has taught Republicans to do, is to know how to fight for these things. And please hear me before this gets spun out of control by the left media. We're not talking about physical violence. We're not talking about a physical bloodbath. We're talking about a red tsunami of people showing up to vote. That's what we want. And so anywhere books are sold, please go look for that Counterpunch by Floyd Brown. Please take a look at that book and spread it around. Give it to other people, because we need people who will speak up with tenacity, Lance. We need people who will speak up. The thing I've always admired about you, Lance, is you don't stop. You're very tenacious, and God honors that in persistence of the faith. But if I look at both you gentlemen, for decades, you've been out there fighting in this thing, and that's what we want to do at FlashPoint Army. We want people to say, hey, we don't win every battle, but we got to win this war. Gene always says that we're often imitated, never duplicated. We're always right of center. But I want to also say we're always giving you truth. And it's not even being negative, Lance. It's also giving you hope, because when you know the truth, you will be set free. And when you run about in freedom, you can do anything God tells you to do. So I want to encourage you. Use your voice. Please pray. Please speak. Don't stop voting, and don't stop getting all of your friends to do. Eventually, we're going to get fair and secure elections. God bless.